Hello and welcome. Now, in the last video I did on this, I said I would make a quick change to it before I uploaded it to pastebin so that you could download it, but I never made the change. So yeah. However, in this version, I have made the change. And in the process, I completely redid the entire thing from start so that it's a lot easier to add new features. Which I added new features as well. It is a lot more interesting now. And also I'm a lot more prepared for it as well. For example, I've already got everything on pastebin and I'm going to show you like the full process of getting it installed. Now again, you need the normal Computercraft mod, and then you have to have Peripherals installed as well, because Peripherals is how you get the iron note block, which is what it needs to use. Now what you do is you just place the computer down. It has to be an advanced computer because it uses colors and stuff like that. A normal computer can't do colors. In fact, if you tried to run this on a normal computer, it would crash because it can't do colors except for black and white, and this uses a lot more than just black and white. Well, it is mainly just black and white, but it does use red for the error messages, which I could change that. In fact, maybe next version I will. Yeah, next version will have support for normal computers. But anyways, once you've placed down your computer, this is the front. If you've never played with Computercraft, this is the front of the computer. It's the front is where the black screen is. You place the iron note block on the back of the computer. And then you open up the computer and you type in pastebin run, and then I've got the code written down. pXjPLcZG. And what this will do is it'll download an extra little script that it uses to download all the other files, and then it'll just delete the script that this code is linked to, and it'll reboot the computer with the music writer itself and the guide and example. So if you just run that, there we go, downloads all the files, reboots. And now that right there, the whole pastebin thing, I did not make that. It comes default with Computercraft. Same with the editing software here as well. Yeah, guide. Yeah, this editing software I didn't make. It's also default with Computercraft. In fact, if I just place down another computer and type in edit, blah, it's the same exact thing. I'm just having it run this. But anyways, I updated the guide with the new changes. And also, I am now including the example file. So you have this. So now, to show you the new changes. Unfortunately, with the way it's currently set up, it's on an infinite loop. It'll never stop, and these are the computers I used to develop, by the way. Yeah, this is how I just uploaded everything, and then this is where anyways. So, since there's really nothing that'll ever stop this from running, in order to get it to stop playing a song if it's in an infinite loop like this, you press and hold Control R on your keyboard, and it'll force the computer to reboot. And now, it actually says it in the guide. It explains how to do that. And it also says that I plan to have a better way of doing this added in the future. So like maybe an operation that you can use to have it skip the operation that has a loop, or maybe like a button on the side of the screen that you can use to stop running it, or maybe both at once, because yeah. Anyways, if we edit the example file, I can explain the new changes. Right here, instantly you've got one right in your face, chunks. Now, people who are familiar with computer programming, a chunk is basically a function, where basically you tell it, you have one operation that says everything from here on is part of this chunk. And then you've got another operation down here that says, okay, this is the end of that chunk. And then everything in here is what's inside that chunk. And now, when the computer is running through this, it won't play any of these notes. It won't run these lines. However, it'll remember that these lines are part of this chunk. And so, from this point on, you can do the run chunk, and as long as you provide the same name you used for both the begin and end chunk operations, and what it'll then do is it'll have the computer jump up to here, and it'll run all the lines in that chunk, then it'll jump back down to where it was originally. And now for the name, you can have the name whatever you want as long as it matches in both begin chunk, end chunk, and run chunk. As long as the name is the same in all three of those operations, it can be whatever you want. And you can have more than one chunk. You can have as many chunks as you want in a single song file as long as they all have different names. In fact, it won't let you create two chunks with the same name. And the other feature is goTo. This is how I did the infinite loop here. What goTo does is it has the computer jumped to a specific line. And so right down here at the very end of it, I tell the computer to jump to line 6, which is this line right here. And what that basically does is it causes the computer to just infinitely loop. And like I said, I plan on having maybe an operation that can tell it to not do this anymore, so that it'll eventually end, or maybe have like a button to just have it stop playing the song. But also other changes I added is now you can indent your lines to keep things more organized. So I can just put spaces all I want before this line here, and it won't matter, because what the computer will do is it'll remove any spaces at the beginning of the line. So when the computer is actually running through the line, no matter how much empty space is here, as long as it's all empty, all it'll see is from this point on. And that will allow you to indent your lines. And so this is an example of that working right here, where basically you would use it to keep things more organized, because if for some reason you were just typing through this quickly and didn't care about because for those of you who don't know it, in programming, computer programming, it is it's not required, but it is it's good practice to keep all of your functions, or in this case chunks, at the top of your script, and that's to help improve organization. However, it doesn't matter, and in here it's the same. You can have the chunk wherever you want in the file. The only thing you need to keep in mind is you can't run the chunk until after the computer has passed by the point where you declare the chunk, which is another reason why it's a good idea to keep it at the top, because then you don't have to worry about making sure if you're able to use it at this point or not, because if all the stuff that the computer is actually running is below all your chunks, then you don't have to worry about that. And also, but anyways, so if you were to declare a chunk like in the middle of your file or something, and you were to just quickly scroll through, if your chunk is indented, then as you're quickly scrolling through, your eye will see that it's indented, and you'll realize, oh well, that's a chunk and not just part of the song file. That was probably the most that was probably the longest and most confusing explanation ever, but I feel like I explained it well. And another feature I added is at the beginning of at the beginning of the line, if you put 2 dashes, it will, in computer programming, this is referred to as a comment, and basically the computer will now ignore this line. It'll just ignore it completely. It'll just skip over it. So I can demonstrate that by commenting out the go-to line at the end of it. And if we play it, notice how it actually ended instead of looping infinitely. And so you can use this to leave notes for yourself, like, this is the end, and spell things properly. And this is the beginning. And the only thing to keep in mind with the comments and how they currently work with this is in pretty much every single programming language that's useful, that's useful at all, you can have a comment on a line with something that isn't part of the comment. Like in Lua code, which is what Computercraft uses, what it'll do is the computer would run this line, but then it'll keep going and realize, oh wait, the rest of this is a comment, and ignore the rest of the line. However, with the music writer here, if you're to try and do this, it'll recognize it as an incorrect line. But I'll just run it real quick without that to show that this should work. Well, should. I haven't tested it yet. Yeah, no issues. Good. However, if you're to put a comment at the end of a line, it won't work. Yeah. And also a new feature here is when it encounters an error. In the previous version, if it encountered an error, in fact I actually still have the previous version here. Yeah, this here's the old version. If I run the guide file, it'll just report, hey, got an error. And it'll just keep going, but with this version, if it gets an error, it'll stop. And the reason for that is, if you have a file with like 600 lines of operations and there's like 30 errors in it and the screen can only fit 19 lines at once, it'll become a bit of a mess. And as you're able to see there, it occurred. And so this is how normal programming languages work when they encounter errors anyways. So you can just go through it one issue at a time. Just take it one at a time. It'll also have you wait to provide input before it'll continue on if it encounters an error, so that you have time to actually look at the error information. So now if we edit the example file again to get rid of that, it should work again. Yep, working just fine. Now, the one thing to note though is if you're to leave it blank and hit enter on either edit or play song, like basically when you're just selecting a song file, if you leave it blank and hit enter, it will, well, what's actually happening is the script is actually crashing, but as you saw there, it didn't really affect it because since this is a startup file, well, actually, no. No, 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 no. No, 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 never mind. Never mind. That didn't crash there. It should have crashed. Yeah, see, it crashed. Apparently in edit song it works fine, but in play song, if you leave it blank... Okay, so let me say it again. This only happens if you're doing it in play song. I just learned. If you leave it blank and hit enter, it'll crash. And to start it running again, you can either hold Control plus R, or you can type in startup, which is the name of the file, and it'll just run the file. But yeah, I'll probably add support for that in the next version, so that if you accidentally hit play song and don't want to play a song, you can just leave it blank when you hit enter, and it'll just go back to the menu like it did in edit song. But yeah, like I said, I completely restructured the entire thing. So if I edit this here is the old script, if I can resize it so it fits within the recording area. This is the old script, the one that I released in the previous video. This is the new one. And actually there's a bunch of things that are minimized right now. If I expand them, you'll see the full length of the whole thing. Yeah, this is the new one. It's a lot bigger. And it's a lot bigger. It's a lot more advanced. However, it makes it so much, the way I did it this time, it makes it so much easier to add new features. So it'll be really easy to just add a new feature whenever I want. However, it might be a while before I do that because I've already implemented every single feature that I want this to have at this time, but well, actually, no, because so far we've already been making plans of new things to add. So, yeah. But basically what I'm saying is this thing is pretty much close to exactly what I want it to be when it's fully done. So, like, these pretty much the only changes I want to make to it now are mainly just behind the scenes stuff. But after that, if I ever think of something to add, it'll probably take like half an hour to implement it, instead of taking like 3 hours if I were to try and do some of this stuff with the other version. Like if I tried to do the whole chunk system with this, it would have taken like 3 hours to figure it out. But with this thing here, it only took like 2 because yeah, it didn't work first try. But you can actually also edit the song files in different programs. Like I've got the example open here. So you can edit these in different programs. This here is Notepad++. And so yeah, you're not limited to just the built-in editor. But anyways, that'll do. Version 1.1 of jogOS Music Mixer. And as you'd expect, if I ever do, like, well, people who watched my channel before know that I have a project called jogOS where I'm basically trying to create a full operating system for these things. And if I ever do actually get a finished version released, it will most likely include the music mixer. However, well, there might be an option to not include it because, quite obviously, Music Mixer requires the Peripherals ++ mod to be installed in order to work. But anyways, yeah, see you guys in the next one. Again, I do not remember the button to stop it with keys. Gotta do this. See ya.